So we're looking back at the 2015 Formula One season, and I'm here with James Allen and Dominic Harlow, former chief engineer with Williams and Force India. Firstly, Mercedes domination. Dom, what did you make of their form?
Well, it was an impressive performance from them again. I think they continued where they left off in 2014. I think when you get that level of dominance that they had, you expect it to last for 2, maybe even 3 years. Those things tend to go in cycles. They've built everything up, they've kept their package together, and they've evolved their car from last year, clearly without being probably revolutionary, just sort of fine-tuned on what they learned in the first year. So they hit the ground running and clearly had a very strong season.
And Lewis's performance?
In the first part of the season, he got off on the right foot, and he looked untouchable for a long time, and then the qualifying started to give away a little bit more towards the end. Could have been some other factors involved there, things like tyres and the tyre pressure stipulations that were coming from Pirelli at the end of the year. Perhaps also, Rosberg put him under pressure.
And James, where did Nico come from at the end?
I think Dom's right, and there's a couple of factors there. Part of it is, did Lewis lose a little bit? And he claims that he did, some changes on the car. And I've spoken to McLaren engineers, for example, who said that they had things a few years ago where they just had to make some microscopic changes to the suspension for legality reasons, and it threw Hamilton off for a little while. It took him a while to get back again. So it can be sometimes very fine things that we don't necessarily see from the outside that can upset him and on any driver, and the same with the tyre pressures that came in from Monza onwards. But I also do think that Rosberg found something, and he wasn't giving anything away. He wasn't going to accept that he'd done anything different. But I do think that, from what I hear, it was in the last part of the braking phase, and when the wheels are about to lock up, and then that sort of releasing the brake and getting into the corner, that he found something that really helped him with his qualifying performance. I don't know if that makes sense to you from an engineering point of view?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the areas that the drivers will focus on quite keenly when they compare their data with another driver or with their teammate, and it's something you quite often see, as you say, just in the last part of braking. Suddenly the speed traces of the two cars will diverge, and one will dart towards the apex with more speed, make the V quicker and get back on the power and out of the corner, and it all adds up to a time gain. And if Nico's found a way of doing that, perhaps with setup, control systems, driving style, tyres, whatever it is, then that could have been quite significant in finding a lap time advantage over Lewis.
And it was always very tight. I mean, the margins, there were a couple of times towards the end of the season where it was 3/10 or whatever, but generally speaking, it was a few hundredths or a tenth. And over a 21 corner lap, you've only got to find a tiny margin, haven't you, to make a difference. Or two, really.
Now, should the rules be changed to actually slow Mercedes down, or do you think the others can actually catch up?
I always travel hopefully. I'm a glass half full kind of correspondent. So I do see great upward trends as far as Ferrari are concerned. Very solid group built around James Allison. The strategy side was pretty strong this year. They didn't drop the ball too often. They were very aggressive early on in the year. Vettel is a leader. He feels comfortable there. They love him, and it's just closing that gap. It's if it genuinely was 2/10 a lap in race conditions in the final part of the season, 2/10 is a bridgeable gap over the winter for Ferrari to Mercedes. If Mercedes were hiding a little bit of their performance, then obviously it's not quite the same. But I think they'll give them a real run for their money next year. I really do. And I question where Hamilton's going to turn up next year as well. I just wonder. First of all, he's got to refocus his goals because he's already a 3-time world champion, which is his life ambition. And secondly, Rosberg will be giving him a hard time. And thirdly, he's obviously, he started to fray a bit, I think, at the end of the year. So he needs to put that behind him and reset himself for 2016.
Thank you both for that. You can read more about that topic and more from the JA on F1 season review, available at the website.